we have 4 simple rules. Number 1, we don't discuss politics, ever. Number 2, this is not a religious channel, and while you might hear people say, God bless you, or I'm going to pray for you, or I wouldn't have gotten through this without my faith, that's fine. What's not fine is to say, my God is better than your God, or here's why you're not getting into heaven. It's not going to fly. Number 3, we believe wholeheartedly if you can't control your tongue, then you can't control your life. So while on board, there's not going to be any cursing in the live chat, period. And number 4, there is no room for mean people on the lifeboat. Because we discuss very sensitive things from people's past in our group setting, we got to protect those people. The only way they feel confident and comfortable discussing those things is in an environment that is free of trolls and mean people. So if you're a mean person or you're a troll, we're going to block you for life. And if your account happens to be less than 24 hours old, we're probably a little suspicious right from the word go. Why? Well, because there are people in this world who enjoy being cruel solely for the sake of being cruel. It's not going to fly here. But if you're here because you're trying to get sober and live your best life, then you might find that the lifeboat is just that, a lifeboat. I'm Captain Tommy Scoville, and we will see you on deck. Hey, good evening, everybody. I'm Captain Tommy Scoville, and you're on the lifeboat. And on the other side of the glass, I've got my partner, the bobbleheaded Mark. We're truthfully happy that you all are here. I say that from the bottom of my heart. One sec, people, because I'm trying to get all of my different devices squared away here. There we go. There you go. All right. First of all, thanks. Last night was a fun show. I don't know that I've ever squirreled more in one show. After a few days of being on my feet and talking to people, I was it sort of devolved into a chat session. But I had a lot of fun last night.
Hey, good evening, everybody.
Whoa, how you doing?
Tommy Scoville.
Should have known. Should have known. That went too smooth. Well, there you can see the delay, people. It's about how long we work with on that delay. Tonight, we're going to be talking about fear. And I'll tell you what drove this. This morning when I got up, I don't do the TV thing. I've told you that. For a lot of reasons, TV is not great for me at this stage of my life. And very often the editing, where it jumps from one scene to the other, gives me a headache almost instantly. I can get away with news, but I've also been pretty open about how I feel about all of the major news outlets. So, things like Marfoogle, there is some news out there that I'll watch, but for the most part, I'm not spending a lot of time, even watching regular run-of-the-mill news programs. So instead, I get feeds, where you just sort of read the things that are happening, and I jump to a couple of different feeds because I don't want to get all of my news from one source. That's never a real good idea, in my opinion, because you get what they want you to see. I think if you get it from a couple of sources, and then you can sort of make your mind up as you go. But there were numerous articles that have been written recently concerning the upcoming generation. And they are saying that this is a generation that is growing up with more fear as part of their lives than any generation since the late 80s. And I've talked before about how the class of 88 has always been pretty much considered the class of gloom and doom. Where they would tell us every day in school that, we weren't going to see adulthood. I used to go to school in the morning in first period class, which was study hall. They would tell us what the nuclear clock was at, how close we were to midnight, midnight being everybody's launched and we're all cooked, and, there were days it was 4 minutes till. And, we had the special on television about, the end of the world, and it was called The Morning After, or The Day After. And it was a 7-part miniseries. And the opening scene is, the Holocaust, this huge nuclear Holocaust going off and destroying everything And for 7 days, you watch what's what's going to happen afterwards. This is a very cheery time to grow up. And my senior paper in high school, the assignment was, they've launched. You have 15 minutes. What are you going to do? Again, cheery, right? And I don't know that it's a coincidence that the class of '88 has one of the worst drug problems of any graduating class in history. And it makes me nervous that the classes that are up and coming now are, basically they're the new doom and gloom. And there's so many different things that they're telling kids these days. They're growing up with if we don't jam the brakes on, the world will be gone in 12 years, because of global warming and all of that jazz. And I'm not here to talk about that, people. I'm not here to talk about the politics of any of this. I'm here to talk about fear, because it is a subject matter that we probably don't spend enough time on, but it is the driving force behind most people's walk in recovery. If you think about it logically from Jump Street, right? I use me as an example most often because it's obviously it's the one story that I'm really familiar with. But fear of what it was going to take in order to get sober kept me using for decades. Fear of the withdrawal, fear of the unknown, fear of losing all of the air quote friends that I thought I had, having to start over. Fear of all of these things was such a driving force that kept me using. Because truthfully, the last 10 years, maybe more than that, I wasn't getting high. I hadn't been getting high in so long. The only reason I was using drugs at that point was to stave off illness. That's really where the level that I had reached, is that I used drugs to get well. I didn't use drugs to get high. You would be viciously ill without it, and it became a daily fear. When the alarm went off in the morning, and I use that term, there was no literal alarm in my life, I assure you. But when my eyes opened for the first time, somewhere between about 11 o'clock and 3 p.m., the first thought was fear. The first thought was, how am I going to get it today? How am I going to, come up with the money that I got to come up with in order to get this, this day? And it was, you got brief respites from the fear. If you were able to come up with the $600 or $700 to have enough to actually be well all day, for about 2.5 to 3 hours, life was just grand. And then you started worrying about, the hell am I going to do tomorrow? And you started thinking in advance of what the next con or the next hustle or the next theft or the next crime, whatever the case may be. And that, of course, led to much larger crimes in hopes of being able to not take care of your needs for a day, but take care of your needs for a month. So it went from, petty stuff to bank robberies. But it was fear that drove all of that. And I think that this is something that we don't spend enough time talking about. As you start to get into the process of sobriety, there's a whole host of other fears that take over. And very oftentimes we build up things, and we've done shows on this, right? The addict always goes to the worst possible case scenario. I think I told everybody last night, I can't get into my damn probation report. When I try to get in there, it blocks me out. So it says you need to contact your probation officer. This account has been locked. Now, this has happened once before. And in fact, it may have happened twice before, but this time I'm not going down that road. I'm truthfully going with the assumption that this cat wants me to contact him so he can tell me they're going to terminate my probation early. Honestly, that's where I'm going with this, because I think I've reached a point where I finally can keep things in perspective. I finally can step back and view what's going on in my life as if I'm viewing someone else's instead. And I think that there's something to that as a technique, right? When you start to hang crepe, that term, right? Crepe hanging, where you just, all of a sudden it is the worst, oh, good Lord, they're going to throw me back in the joint. Maybe one of those tests that I took, I failed and they didn't tell me about it, or you just start going through all of these stupid things. Man, I haven't failed any drug tests. I haven't done any drugs. I haven't done anything wrong. So I step back from the situation and I look at it, and I don't believe that this man could possibly have ever had a probationer. that's doing a better job on probation than I am. And I'm not bragging. I'm just telling the truth. I've never failed a drug test. I've never been late showing up for a drug test. I've never had one issue with this man at all. I didn't go through any period of time where I wasn't gainfully employed. And I happened to, co-host a sobriety show with thousands of people that are subscribed to every single night. I do this for an hour at a shot. I just started thinking logically, I wonder how many probationers are running the same kind of program I got going at this point. He said to me, I want you to have a driver's license by such and such a date. About 35 days before that date come up, I had the driver's license. If you get a vehicle, I want to know that the thing is insured. You got 90 days to let me know that. I did it in 10 days. There's absolutely nothing that this man could possibly come up with that he could be upset with me about. Now, there was some activity early on that bummed the guy out, but not because I had done anything wrong, but because, believe it or not, there were people on YouTube who decided to reach out and try to talk to this guy because they didn't like what we were doing on the lifeboat. And that created a bit of a headache for the guy. But I don't think his anger was directed at me as much as it was just sort of the jackwagons that populate this planet, But I would like everybody in sobriety, even if you're not in sobriety, but if you're in sobriety, fear is one of the big driving forces that make you use. And if you think about that logically, it makes so much sense, right? We do not like negative emotions. We like it when everything is great. We like it when we're not worried about bills. We're not worried about, well, if you think logically, all of the things that we worry about are driven by fear. Worry and fear could be the same damn word, couldn't it? Right? I'm worried about my bills. You mean you're afraid that you're not going to be able to pay all your bills and you're going to get evicted or your power's going to get turned off, or you're afraid that you're not making enough money. It always comes back to fear. And it is a rare thing that it's as bad as we build it up in our head. It really is. But this is a disease, people. And as one of the things that I want us to concentrate on is that, and think about logically if you can, the fact is, when we allow this fear to crawl into our lives, it's not just affecting us. If it was, that would suck. It's bad enough, right? But it trickles down to a lot of people within your sphere of influence. And God forbid the people in your sphere of influence are, say, under the age of 18. I mean, if mom and dad, or even uncle and aunt, or anybody that is in a place that kids look up to, if you're walking around in that fear, when kids see adults in fear, it is a far worse situation than when they create it on their own. And I think that's why the two news stories that I caught this morning frightened me so much. We created a lot of this crap in 1988. A lot of it was came from our teachers, just being real. I mean, the whole, let's talk about the nuclear clock, 365 consecutive days. I mean, that'll set you where you're going. But we could see that there were teachers panicking. We could see that these people were really living in fear. And I distinctly remember those days. I really do. I remember thinking to myself, we would even articulate this. This is something that would come out of our mouth, when people would say, man, you're smoking way too much pot. You're not going to get through college. College? You know what I mean? We're going to be dead by 34. There isn't even going to be a planet. The hell do you care about college? Hello, squirrel. That became one of those situations that I don't know whether it was a convenient excuse. Honestly, at this age, I don't know that it was something that I just didn't use as a great excuse to blow everything off and say, well, we're all going to be dead anyway. Or if it was something that was really sort of, driving the fear was driving my addiction. I don't have any idea anymore. Things get really foggy in terms of decisions that I made and the things that influenced me. I remember, distinctly as hell, all of the different people talking about it nonstop. I had a cousin that wrote to the president and said, I don't want to die in a nuclear war. And the president actually wrote back to her So as I was growing up, there was this framed picture on the wall telling her that, you know what, no one's going to die in a nuclear war. So I think it's important, if you've got kids or if you've got people who are, part of that, that you're a part of their life and you influence them in any way, you might want to remind them that we've all seen this show before. You understand? Because for a kid who's 13, 14, or 15, there's no perspective. There's no, guess what? This is the third time I've seen this in my lifetime. Because for those of a specific age, you know what? The first thing that was going to kill us, it was acid rain, right? When I was in elementary school, it's all they talked about. They talked about the hole in the ozone layer that was, big enough to drive South America through it. And it was causing acid rain that was literally melting the skin off of people. They used to talk about, believe it or not, acne, but the term was chloracne. You could still look this up. It's still out there. But chloracne was actually killing people. And this was a type of skin condition, a very serious, dermatitis type of thing that was a direct response, directly caused by acid rain. And if you're old enough, this is a true story. I had a teacher named Scott Coulter. I was in 6th grade, and he told us in no uncertain terms for an entire year that we were going to die because of the change in climate in an ice age. Swear to you people, right? Yeah, he said we are entering an ice age, and it shouldn't be happening when it is. By definition, an ice age is when the North and the South Pole both have ice on them. True story, look it up. But a lot of this stuff, and I'm not taking the politics end of it, people. I'm thoroughly convinced that we're not doing great stuff to this planet, and we really need to tighten that up. However, the fear porn that we're living under in this world is absolutely abhorrent. And it's not a big deal if you're 45 or 50. But if you're 14, 15, or 16, you might really believe that this earth is going to hell in a handbasket and there's only 12 years left. Go back and watch that excellent film made by our previous vice president, who said he was predicting by 2022 that there wouldn't be in New York, right? All of Manhattan was going to be underwater. All of Miami was going to be underwater. And when they put these people on the spot and say, hey, what's the story on that? He said, well, we've made such strides. We were able to save it, but we haven't done enough. Whether or not this stuff is true, people, is irrelevant.
Doesn't matter.
It really is. Yeah, it's irrelevant. The important thing is, and I mean, it's irrelevant for what I'm speaking of, right? I don't mean in general, but I mean for the purpose of this discussion, it's not relevant. What's relevant is this is trickling down to our kids. And as I have been beating the drum viciously now for 3 or 4 months. If this leads our kids to experiment with drugs, it's not like us experimenting with drugs. It's not, because of the poison on the street. If this causes the next generation to experiment more with drugs, we're going to lose a lot of them. By the way, I have been coming on and I've been saying, the government is now saying that, we're up to 130 people a day that are dying. People, do the math on 130 people a day and tell me how they deliver that with a straight face, right? What does that come out to? 56,000 or something like that? Well, in the same article, they'll tell you we lost 100,000 people last year. And then they'll tell you that somehow that works out to an average of 130 a day. No. I'm no mathematician. I was told there would be no math on the lifeboat, but you do the math, we're losing somewhere between 300 to 600 people a day. Yeah. That's real, right?
It doubled in a year.
Right. Yeah, it's gaining momentum at a crazy rate. And I don't bring this up because I'm trying to do the scared straight thing. I'm really not. And if you've ever heard we do a lot of stuff about, I did a lot of shows early on about how to talk to your kids about drugs, right? We did a little thing called the ounce of prevention, where we would really break down how you ought to talk to your kids about drugs. And I'm not a guy that thinks, you try to scare the hell out of your kid. You don't go in there and say, if you do drugs, you're going to die. That's not the approach, and that's not what I'm telling you this, right? I'm giving you the reality of this so that you can go to your kid and say, listen, if you're going to make mistakes along the way, and people do, if you're going to decide that you're going to experiment with drugs, there's some things that you really need to know. Are drugs going to kill you? Not in their normal form. They won't. Unfortunately, the drugs that are on the street today are not in their normal form, right? The illustration I used to use was, if you take a gun and you stick it on a table and you say to a room of 30 kids, if you touch that, it's going to explode and kill you. It might take a day, it might take a week, but there's a kid that's going to touch that. I promise you. And when he sees that it doesn't explode, they're going to go, you know what? They lied to us. And then they're going to pick that thing up and they're going to point it at people.
Yep.
And bad things will happen, right?
100%.
If you say, this is the cylinder or this is the magazine, the bullet's going here, you slide this in this way, and then this slides back, that's locked. This thing's called the safety. Now, it may sound crazy to some people, but I got a gun when I was 12. I'm not advocating for the Second Amendment, people. I'm making a point. But I got a gun when I was 12, and I'll tell you something. I had a stink load of respect for that thing. I would not have pointed it at anybody. I knew that what came out of the end of that barrel could kill you. And, you know, I grew up on a lot of land in Vermont, and we used to go out with a gun. I mean, we used to go out and shoot things. It was pretty normal stuff for everybody in the state. I never knew anybody that got hurt, you know, with a gun. I never knew. But before I got that gun, I was forced to go through something called firearms safety instruction. I entered that course when I was 12. Well, I want to tell you something. They didn't say, don't go anywhere near guns. And it's the same kind of an illustration, right? If you said to your child, if you have sex, you're going to die within 15 minutes of sex, right? Those kind of lies, the kind of stuff that, you know, so what do? We preach abstinence. We tell our kids, you'd probably be better off if you didn't have sex until you got married, right? However, if you're going to have sex, you should probably use a condom so that I don't become a grandfather, right? You know, and you go through and you preach abstinence, but you teach safe sex. Well, that's the same principle with what's going on the streets today. You should tell your kids, look, in a perfect world, I don't want you doing any drugs at all. However, if you make mistakes, and kids do, look, if you don't see the pill come out of a pill bottle with your name on it, then you don't know where it came from. And I'm going to pull you online, and I'm going to show you some stuff about these pills that have the number 30 on them that are absolutely deadly. They're just deadly. It's too difficult for people to meter out how much they put in every one of these pills. It's just not working. And a lot of people are dying. The reason I'm doing this, people, is we have been banging the drum really loud. And I don't want to be accused of fear porn, and I don't want to be accused of fear mongering or any of that crap. I hope you understand that that's not what I'm talking about. You know, I'm not trying to scare addicts off of dope, because you can't scare an addict off of dope.
Nope.
You know, we're not stupid. In fact, the addicts are probably never been happier. I know that sounds insane, but if I was using drugs right now, I'd be high-fiving people saying, we're living in the promised land.
Yep.
I mean, this stuff is so strong, it's killing 600 people a day. What could be better? Because that really is the mindset of the average opiate addict. They would if they could get carfentanil, they would try to figure out a way to just be in the same room with it and see if that would get them well.
Yep.
That's the nature of it. So we're not trying to scare addicts off of drugs. We're trying to make people aware of what's going on.
That's the correct word. That's the correct word.
Yeah. I mean, this really is an awareness campaign. And, you know, I know that there are people out there that think, you know, we're doing this to scare people, or we're doing it because we want to be sensational and do the big, you know, we're doing it because no one else is. I mean, now it's starting to get into the media. You know, you're starting to hear more about it, but for the longest time, it was straight ignored, and it was ignored because it didn't benefit either side of this, people. For those of you who love to hate me for being a Republican, the Republicans ain't doing squat either. You know, I'm not pointing the finger at a political party. I'm pointing a finger at anybody that got elected. And I'll tell you, there are some people now that are stepping up to the plate. There are some people now that are screaming about this. You know, they really are. And thank God.
Didn't it start like 3 months ago? They started to slowly do that. And I've seen it, like you're saying, you see like a progression, you know. But I agree with you on that one, dude. They are definitely starting to say some things about it. Thank God. And we're here.
Why? Because of people like Steve.
Yeah, exactly.
Straight up.
and us. I mean, it's
There
not.
are enough people making noise that now they have to address it. Um, I'm not picking on, again, anybody in particular, but how many times have you seen a politician 4 years ago say, I am anti-crime, I am anti-immigration, I am anti-abortion, and they will then completely change their tune, go 180 degrees, because politicians go with the breeze. They don't stand on principle. They stand on the results of the most recent polling.
It's
They want to
both
get
parties too.
reelected.
It's both
What's that?
parties. It's both parties, like
Oh
you
Lord,
said.
yes.
There's nobody in particular. It's everything, and yeah, it's awareness is what we're really trying to do. You could trade that word fear for that in what we do. Honestly, people think it's fear.
Now, and now that I've sort of got that out of the way, because I think that needed to be addressed, but um, fear is a tool. It really is. I mean, there is such thing in recovery as good fear. You know, um, I'm terrified of heroin. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm afraid of that drug. I know, I can't control it. I know there's no way I can beat it. There are people who occasionally will say it comes up probably at least once a month where someone will say, you really should be proud of yourself for beating that stuff. No, I didn't beat that stuff, right? That stuff can't be beat. And the day that I start believing that I beat that stuff, I'm in deep trouble. Because if you believe that you've got it beat, it's akin to saying I've got it under control. These are things that can't be beat and can't be controlled. I've said this, it's so often it's becoming a lifeboat cliche, but the only way to win a fist fight with your drug of choice is to not get in a fist fight with your drug of choice, right? I have to keep myself as far away from that substance as humanly possible. And, like I said I can't remember what show it was on, but it was recent. I go back and I watch prison shows. I also go back and I watch shows that will show somebody under the influence. And I've heard people say, I can't watch stuff like that because it's a trigger. For me, it is the exact opposite. It really is, because they're not showing somebody that got high the way I got high. They're showing the worst situations, right? And I look at someone nodding and I look at someone doing all of that and I think to myself, good God, that was the substance I was on, right? This is how I spent 3.5 decades. And by the time that, show is over, I'm scared. I'm literally afraid of this stuff again. And I don't ever want to lose that fear. I have seen people on the boat. I'm not picking on anybody by name, I assure you, but I have seen people on the boat who were zipping along and came to a point where they were no longer afraid of their substance of choice. In fact, to the point where I think I'll just go get high once. I think I'll just, I'm proving that I can do it is what I'm doing. I'm proving I got this licked. In many cases, after that happens, we don't see them again. Now, they're in my prayers, and I certainly hope that they come back. But if they do, they're going to be coming back and they're going to be starting from scratch, because you can't poke the bear with a stick. You can't. When I talked about the other night about having a plan and knowing exactly what that plan is ahead of time, I can't lay your plan out for you. But what I can tell you after a lot of experience with this is, if your plan is to not use for the next 2 or 3 months so you can get it under control and then go back to like some kind of air quote recreational use or some kind of moderation, it has never worked. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. It has never worked. Now, and I'll get an email tonight from someone who will say, I know a guy that does that. Yeah, he wasn't an addict, right? There are people who have gotten out of control, done too much dope. There was a time in my life where I drank too much. My freshman year in college, I was a lush, but I wasn't an alcoholic. I did way too much drinking, and I jammed the brakes and stopped, but I didn't stop opiates. I didn't stop my drug of choice. And these days, a couple of times a year, I have 2 or 3 beers, and I'm completely capable of that.
Yep.
Because I've never been addicted to alcohol. But if I thought, just try that with heroin, I'm just going to take a couple of hits. you will, I might try to do a few shows, and see if I can't keep it going, but within the first week I'd be gone.
Yeah.
I mean, realistically, I might make a day or two, but certainly within the first week, that would be the end of it.
This is something
so there, go ahead, Mark.
That's a good fear, and I think that's kind of what we're saying. Fear is both sides. You can turn it into something you can use as a positive tool. It might not start off that way. You know what I mean? It might start off as like, oh my God, I'm scared to do this or scared to do that. But the fact of the matter is that fear turns into, if you can mold it the right way, it turns into cautiousness. And, if you just pull out that positive part of it. Now, I'm not going to sit here and deny that most fear, almost all of the fear, is not good stuff, right? But there is thing, if you spin it the right direction in your mind, you can use it as a tool for yourself. I'm scared to death. Just like Tommy said. I can't get around people that are throwing pills in their mouth all the time. I can't do it. If I do, I'm going to sit there and it's going to, might not at first, like you said, a couple days, right? And then the next thing you do, you look over and you're like, man, I wish I could do that. And then it becomes, well, maybe I could do it one time. And then it just snowballs, guys. I mean, it really is. It's what I would call an accelerated slow relapse is what I would call it.
Well, it starts with the rationalization. Yeah. I mean, we've done shows on this. You start rationalizing, and the next thing you know, I mean, even though you came on and you read your goodbye letter to drugs and you talked about how viciously out of control you were and how every single penny you spent went to drugs and how you didn't care about your family or you didn't care about God, you didn't care about anything but doing drugs. And the next thing you know, you're saying stuff like, it really wasn't that bad. I mean, honestly, I was only out of control for about 4 months. I mean, for the first 6 to 7 years I did it, it wasn't even that bad. And when you start doing those rationalizations and when you start minimizing what that stuff was doing to you, get on a phone and start calling somebody, right? Start calling somebody, because at that point you are in relapse. Doesn't mean you're getting high, but you're relapsing.
The most
dangerous. Start or fantasizing. That's another thing and like Mark said, I can't get around people who are doing it. If I were to go into a room and see somebody shooting dope, when Pulp Fiction comes on, I turn it off during the scene where he goes and shoots dope. Like, the scene is no big deal, but I don't want to watch a needle break somebody's skin. It has an effect on me. I mean, it has an effect on my pulse rate. It has an effect on galvanic reflexes. I mean, for real, I'll start to perspire. You can't do something for 3.5 decades and not have it leave a permanent mark on who you are. Like, my soul has been scarred viciously by heroin. And when I talk about fear, and I talk about fear being an ugly thing, I hope you're getting the difference of what I'm talking about, because the longer you're sober and the more you seem to really get your life in order, the more you'll get fear under control. You'll get to a point, like I was talking about in the very beginning, where you can pull yourself away from the situation and not allow the emotions of what's going on to affect decision processes and to affect that feeling. God forbid you throw dope into that same category. God forbid you get fears so under control that you think, you know what difference does it make if I'm at Tony's house and he's banging dope? It ain't like I'm going to be doing it. You know what I mean? So he gets high. Like I told you about my relapse. I talked, the previous time that I went to prison. I've told this story 1,000 times, but if you're new to the boat, I had a wife, beautiful woman, an attorney I was married to. And I said to her, I'm going to buy shirts for business. And she said to me, oh, you're going to such and such a place, which was right by the house. I'm like, no, I'm going to go to Savers, because that place has got really cheap stuff. And if you look through it, I probably saved a fortune. And she's like, oh, makes you happy. I don't know why the hell you'd want to go to Savers. Well, because it was really close to the hood. And it was really close to a guy's house that I used to do a lot of dope with. And you know what, people? I didn't go to his house. I just drove over there and I looked for shirts. And then I came back. Proved I could do it. A week went by, 5 days, I don't remember. I said, I'm going to go chuck it again. And this time I thought to myself, you know what? I'm a mile away from the guy's house. I'm not even going to stop and say hi. You know what I mean? Why? Because I'm sober now. I can't even be friends with the dude. I mean, that's just jacked up, right? I'm a jerk. That doesn't even make sense. It's not like I'm getting high. I'm just going to go over. I'm going to say hello. And I drove over to his house and said, how you doing, brother? And I drove over in a Mercedes and I was wearing a suit. And he looked at me and went, wow, man, you got it together. I said, I do. He's like, you coming by to score? You trying to get high? I said, no, man, no, not at all. Like, that's not a part of my life, man. I just wanted to come by and say hello. And I left and high-fived myself the whole way home. Look at me. I've got this under control. No, people, I relapsed the first time I went to that shirt store. To say it was to get shirts. I wasn't there to get shirts. So I went back again, looked for shirts, balling this time. Then I drove back over to his house. I said, hey, what are you doing? He said, man, the dude's going to be here in about 15, 20 minutes. If it's going to make you uncomfortable, maybe you want to take off. I said, no, what are you buying? He's like, 3 or 4 bags. Pulled 100 off of my bankroll. Said, here, man, this is you. Don't worry about it. I got a ton of cash right now. What's the point of getting 3 or 4? Knock yourself out. And I watched as he bought the stuff, and I watched as he came into the house. And this time I was there when he used. And he was like, you sure you don't want one? Nah, I don't want one. I'm good. And then I drove away, high-fiving myself the whole way home, right? Got this under control, man. I got this licked. I've been to the hood 3 times. This time I saw him buy stuff, right? And in my head, there's no fear. No fear. I could be in the room with this stuff. Right? What am I worried about? So when I went back the next time, I thought, I can come over here. I can watch him get high. I can do all of these things. I'll bet you money I could take a couple of hits. I wouldn't use a needle. But when he picked up that time, I said, you got any tin foil? And I swear to you, even said to me, hey, you sure you want to do this? Mm-hmm. I said, yeah, I'm not going to catch a habit. I'm just going to smoke a little bit. I'll chip. You know what I mean? I'm just going to get high on a Monday. I won't do it on Tuesday. I couldn't tell you, honestly, how long that crap lasted. But I'd be willing to bet just about anything on the planet that it wasn't a month.
I will say,
and by the end of that month, everything that I owned had a little red for sale sign tags on it. A month after that, the Mercedes was, in the garage because something happened that I wasn't going to get it fixed because that would have cost money. And money at that point was going to dope. And then I had to sit down with the woman that I was married to and say, yeah, you know what? I caught a habit. I'm getting high again. But listen, it's under control, right? It's not like I'm broke yet, because I had a good nest egg. But like I have said so many times on the show, it's not like I started with a habit this big, because the whole time I wasn't using, my habit was growing and growing and growing. And I had probably a 4 gram a day habit. And within a month, I was doing 7. And that was really, the worst of the worst. And that's what really led to the unbelievable crime. And I all but destroyed that woman's life. I've done shows where I talked about how she stole my identity and ripped off all the money. But if I had been a stand-up cat, right, none of that ever would have happened. If I had been a stand-up cat, she wouldn't have gotten high. I through my negligence pretty much destroyed her life. I don't know what's up with her now because I don't do the cyber stalk or any of that stuff. I don't want to know. I truthfully don't. Probably because I would just assume not have the guilt. You know what I'm saying? Just assume not know. Yeah. But the moral of the story, people, is, if you were to say, Tommy, at what point were you, did the relapse happen? Was it the time that you bought them? No, it was the first time I drove to Savers. Right? I might not have used for 2 or 3 weeks, but the time I drove over there was not one proper reason on the planet to go to that place. Now, these days I hunt down, watches. I hit every thrift store on the planet and I go to that thrift store. But you want fear? I don't ever go there alone. I don't. I will, and I won't. That is not a part of town I will ever drive to. I don't care if I live to be 80. I will never drive to that part of town alone because I spent 3 decades walking those streets, right? Doing dope. And it's just not something, it's not a position I'm ever going to put myself in again. I hope that this is making sense, people. I hope that you're getting a handle on what I'm talking about.
I think you're putting it out there good, man. It's a hard one it really is. It's a hard one to wrap up.
It is, because it's probably the most complex of all of the issues that face us in addiction. In the very beginning, people, it's cut and dry.
Yeah.
If you're drinking a 5th of booze a day, right? I know what your fear is, right? Nothing to it. It's real clear what your fear is. If you got a 6 gram a day heroin habit and you're not quitting, I know why you're not quitting, right? You're terrified of what that withdrawal sickness is going to be. And the idea of facing life with all of those emotions coming at you, and not having something to dull that is terrifying. I've been there. I get that, right? That makes perfect sense.
Well,
but there's a bunch of layers. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, I just think that sometimes we find ourselves in a position too, and this is for me, this is actually probably almost more difficult than something that I had already went through is the fear of the unknown. Because you're getting into territories where you don't know how you're going to react. You don't know what's coming because you've not been through it. And we can listen all day long, guys. To We could sit here and listen to me and Tommy watch every one of our videos from start to end. Ben's watch it or whatever. But at the end of the day, unless you felt that, just grab a hold of you. You know, it just, man, it's a hard thing to let people know it's normal though. And and I think once somebody can recognize that, they can kind of get past and at least start to understand why.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. By the way, Cody, I'm glad you're here, brother.
Yeah,
I really am.
I was going to say the same thing.
I'm glad you're here, and I get it. You know what I mean? The day is coming, Cody, where you're going to come here one day and say you're not, and we're going to be fired up for you. But in the interim, we don't love you any less, bud. It is a tough journey, and we all know that. I mean, the one nice thing about this channel, there's a reason it's called the Lifeboat, right? And this started out, the evolution of the name was, you don't have to explain stuff here because we're all in the same boat, right? That is literally how the name came into being. And then we were in the process of trying to name the boat something. Everyone was suggesting the SS something.
Yep.
And somebody said you should call it the Lifeboat is what you ought to call it. That sort of stuck.
Let me share something positive with you guys real quick.
Please do.
I was going to send this to Tommy, but I'll just read it. When we come on and we do a show, I always share to Facebook, and then I create a community post on my YouTube page, on my Wages World page. And underneath that last one that I sent out yesterday when you did a show, I got a comment back, and it was from Ann Mountain is the account. Said 22 years sober, and I work in the field of addiction and homelessness. Your channel is doing so much good work. Thank you. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, it guys, and I share that with all you guys because it's because of you guys. That's why. That's why I don't just share this stuff with Tommy. Say, hey man, look at this, man. This really makes us feel good and all that, and it does. But I wanted you guys to hear that too. Because that's you guys. It's all of us, me and Tommy included. I'm not leaving us out of that because we're all part of this. And we celebrate the good and the bad when we do bad. So we're all together all at the same time. So I wanted to share that with you. But that's one of the best compliments you can get. When you got people in the field and past addicts that are in the field telling you that, hey, you guys are doing some good work there. The compliment doesn't get much bigger than that because they didn't have to do that. Again, I have to say that. This is somebody that I don't know that I've ever even had a personal conversation with. So there really was no reason for that to have to be said is what I'm trying to say. But yet they took the time to put underneath that because it's actually what's happening and people are getting help. And I've had people in my own group tell me the same thing. And, it's amazing. So just thought you guys like to hear that.
I do. I mean, that's awesome. It's a cool thing. Today I went out to deliver. I sold a watch over the weekend to a woman, but it needed to be sized. It was like had 2 or 3 links that needed to be removed, and I didn't bring the equipment to do that to the show. But she was local, so I said, "Yeah, I'll drop it off." And then, as it turned out, it was like driving to another state. This woman lived so far out into the sticks, and it was like an hour and 10 minutes round trip. It was just crazy. But she volunteers at a library, and it's snowing in northern Nevada. Right, 2 days ago it was like 70, and the last couple of days it's been snowing. So right before I went out, I thought, man, I can't go out in the t-shirt. Right, so I grabbed the first thing I saw, which was a sweatshirt, and I pulled it on. Wasn't thinking about it at all. And I went running into the library and I put it in a nice little gift bag and dropped it off to her. And she said, "Hey, I found a Mickey watch and gave it to me, which is cool. She said, this thing isn't running. If you want it, you can have it." So I got a cool Mickey watch out of it. But she said, "And I love your shirt." And I looked down and I had the Never Quit Quitting shirt. And I was like, I said, "Thank you." And she goes, "Do you mind if I ask you the story behind it?" And I said, "No, not at all. I'm a recovering heroin addict." And she just sort of got a look on her face.
Like,
I said,
wow. Yeah.
I said, "And I have a channel on YouTube with a partner." And we, told her a little bit about the lifeboat. And she said, "That is just the coolest thing in the world." And then she said to me, "And I love how open and honest you are. It didn't seem to bother you at all." I said, "It shouldn't, should it?" I said, "I would have been far more ashamed if I wasn't wearing the shirt and I was high."
Exactly.
I said, "But at this, point in my life, I'm pretty at ease with the things that I've done in my past. That's we did some semantic gymnastics on the whole owning it. Does owning it mean that that you admit it to yourself or you admit it to others? Owning it means that stuff's out there for the world to see. You take ownership of the things that you have done. Saying, "Yes, I did this," and saying it in a closet, that's not owning it. You know what I mean? I don't know how we sort of got hung up on that one, but I don't have a problem. And I wasn't afraid of what she was going to say. I've sort of reached a place in my life where, you know what, if the person that I used to be is too much for you to like, you know what, I get it. I really do. I'm not even mad at you. If you can't get over the things that I've done in my past, I mean, I didn't drop the, "Hey, robbed a lot of banks," maybe for a later date.
Yeah. Baby steps.
Maybe I'll bring up the bank robberies a little later. that one might have been a little bit tougher.
And that even touches on the fear, because we're afraid sometimes of what other people are going to think, and especially when like your business, because it kind of affects your business, And it's a good, and everybody handles this different. And I don't know that there's ever a correct answer, a blanket correct answer for anybody. I think it is individualized on what you got going on, because there are jobs.
Speaking.
Go ahead.
Speaking of never having a correct answer, Cody English said, "Quitting drinking is hard. How do you do it?" You know what? That is such a tough question, Cody. It really is. And at the same time, it is the easiest question in the entire world, right? The easiest answer in the entire world is, tomorrow, you don't drink any alcohol, right? Now, I realize how simplistic that answer is. And I know that it is a much tougher road than that. But on the real, it's not. Okay? The quitting drinking part is easy as hell. Don't drink anything. It's living with that decision and that quit that's tough, right? And how do you do that? Well, I would start by dedicating 2 hours every single day to concentrating on nothing for 2 hours other than, I don't want to do this anymore for the rest of my life. That first hour is when you first get up in the morning. Now, whether you spend that time talking to God, or you spend that time talking to a sponsor, or you reach out to me, I talk to you every day for an hour in the morning. I will, no joke. Till you get on your feet and get rolling, reach out to me. You know what my email is. But what it takes is an hour in the morning and an hour at night. And you'll get to a point where an hour a day might do it. But when you get up in the morning, you say, "Not today." You draw that line in the sand. Today is a day I ain't going to drink. And then 6 o'clock rolls around, you jump on the lifeboat. If you're having a bad day, you tell everybody here that you are, and people will help to support you. And Cody, if that can't get it done, then what you do is you go to a doctor, right? And you say to him, "I've tried everything under the sun to try to quit, and I can't. All of my best efforts have led to nothing." And he may recommend something called naltrexone, which has been having, monstrous results with an awful lot of people. Naltrexone is a drug that can keep you from enjoying alcohol, right? It will stop the reward center of your brain from giving you feel-good chemicals. It doesn't stop the alcohol from getting you drunk. It just stops it from being fun. And I have yet to come across anybody in the industry, right, of the recovery industry, or have I come across anyone in recovery that has badmouthed this substance, and its use for getting off alcohol. Go ahead, Mark.
I would say this too, Cody. If you're to the point where you've been an alcoholic and when you stop drinking, you're shaking, you need medical help. Okay,
Yeah.
you need to go to the doctor and have him help you medically because you don't want to have a seizure. Yeah, that's one of the biggest risks with alcohol withdrawal. And if you wake up in the morning shaking really really bad, and you have to have a beer or whatever right at the beginning, it's time to see a doctor, man. I don't
Yeah.
I hate to say it that way, but it's really where you're
No,
at.
I didn't see that in the comment. And
Well,
Mark, I'm
he
telling you, my bobbleheaded partner nailed it. Cody, listen very carefully, because what he said is law. Cold turkey is great if you're doing, a couple of beers, or you're drinking a 6-pack a day. But if you're drinking to the point where in the morning you literally have to have that, or you're shaking, then you need to reach out to a medical professional. And the good news is this: they will give you something so that you will not be shaking in the morning.
Yep.
Right? They can do that, and it's a step down procedure. They're just going to give you alcohol and a pill.
Yep.
Honestly, that's what they're going to give you.
That's what they're going to
give
do.
you a tranquilizer that does the same thing.
Yeah, be Xanax or Ativan or something like that, probably.
Yep.
But at the first, and again, guys, that's all between him and his doctor. And if you do that right, guys, you can do it. I'm telling you, it works. It's just like anything else. If you titrate and you titrate at the right rate for you, it does work. And let me tell you this though, from experience, I know it's not easy. Okay, because you got that mental thing going on. Not only do you have the physical part, and the doctor can help you with that, but then now you're getting your moment of clarity, and that's when you start working on that mental issue. And that's how it worked for me anyway, and I know that's how it worked for a lot of people. But you have to. Just you saying that, Cody, is telling me that you're wanting to do something.
Make no mistake. If you're getting the shakes in the morning, and you've been drinking that long, brother, don't do anything until you talk to a medical professional. Don't go cold turkey, please.
Yeah.
And if you don't, there are medical professionals. I promise you, there is not any place in the United States of America that will not take you. You can walk into an emergency room. You do not need insurance. You do not need anything. If you walk in and say, you know what, if I go cold turkey, I'm going to die. I've been drinking that long. I hear people all the time say, well, I got no insurance. People,
it ain't going to matter.
Things I have gone to the hospital without insurance and been treated for. We have a law in this country that they cannot not treat you.
Right.
So please, I would encourage you, bud, go to an ER, go wherever you got to go, but go talk to a doctor, because I've said this a million times on the show, and we get proven right on it over and over and over again. The window of wanting to quit opens and shuts. Right? It opens and then it shuts, and it doesn't stay open very long. So if you're feeling right now like you don't want to do this anymore, go see a doctor right now, bud. Seriously, go see a doctor right now and start that process.
They won't hesitate.
The best part of it is they're going to make it painless. Go ahead, Mark.
Oh, yeah. You don't want to hesitate. You don't.
Yeah. Do not hesitate.
For a whole lot of reasons, and Tommy just hit all of them. That window of you wanting to quit, even though you might be drunk right now, doesn't matter. You want to quit right now, go get help. Honestly. And if you need help getting to some place like that, I'm sure you can contact one of us, and we can get you, we'll point you in the right direction.
Reach out.
Yep.
Our contact information is in the drop box. Yeah. If you don't know the next step, man, reach out. Don't trip. I promise you. And if you're not familiar with something called the DTs, that's what you're feeling in the morning, man. Right. Yeah. It's the delirium tremens, and it's dangerous stuff.
Just be careful.
Can't stress that enough. I'm sorry.
He just said he can go cold turkey. He's done it 100 times. Listen, you can only go cold turkey till you can't.
Right.
And the can't is not waking up again. So that's the
if
deal.
You've gotten to the point where you got the shakes, those are by definition the DTs, right? Mm-hmm. And they're very, very dangerous. I've said this many times on the show, but believe it or not, the two gentlemen that started AA, right, when they used to do those meetings, those guys used to keep a half a gallon of gin underneath the bathroom sink. And if a guy came in the DTs, they would literally dole out a couple of shots to take away the shakes. And their justification was you can't talk to someone in the DTs. Right. Like how in hell are they going to concentrate on what you're talking about? And at that point, the science was not there either. They weren't mentioning anything about saving life. They were just trying to, they were of the firm belief that, and I've said it a million times, if, when people say, well, the key is spirituality, or the key is, finding your passion. And if you're sticking a needle in your arm 4 times a day, there's no spirituality. There's no anything other than sticking a needle in your arm 4 times a day, right? If you're drinking a fifth a day, that's the only thing there is, right? It's the same thing with all addictions. When you get to the point where you're full blown, there isn't any time for God. There isn't any time for family. There isn't any time for any of that. That's why we're here. That's why we're all here right now, because we've come to realize that addiction steals every single thing in life that's worth a shit. Pardon me. It's the truth. Anything in your life that's worth having gets stolen by addiction, right? That's why we're all here. We're here to tell you that it doesn't have to be that way. And Cody, you can do this, my brother. I promise you. I got faith in you. I really do. I'm not just saying that. If I can get off of this stuff, honestly, if Mark can get off this stuff, the reason that the lifeboat is here is because in our earliest conversations, we said, boy, if the two of us, right, could get clean and sober and come back from where we were.
Yeah.
I mean, I know, and I get emails and people go, well, you don't realize how tough it is. People, I was robbing banks for heroin, right? I know how tough it is.
And I was taking my kid to buy drugs in a blizzard. I mean, come on now. I know how tough it is.
During the holidays.
Yeah, with stolen Christmas money. Or borrowed, quote unquote borrowed, because in my mind that's how I justified it.
Yeah.
But
just like I was borrowed money from Wells Fargo. Same kind of borrow.
Yeah, and exactly. So
who hasn't gone in there and made withdrawals, right?
Just
didn't have an account. That was mine.
I'm sorry, but that was funny. I'm sorry, I don't care.
Pamela Swan says, I was an alcoholic hooked on pain pills. Pamela, God bless you.
Yep. Brandon, yeah, for sure though, man. I mean, just do what you need to do. We're here. Obviously, everybody here in the chat's here for you. And I think you know that. And that's why you feel comfortable enough to even come on here. And the first thing you said was, hey, I'm drunk. That shows that you trust us. And I hope that you do. I hope we've earned that trust. And I really do 100% say this, that we will help if you reach out. That's all you have to do. And if you don't know where to go, and if you don't want to reach out to us, look at the numbers on the bottom left. You can find stuff there.
Hey, and how many times have I said, the beautiful thing about this place is you don't have to explain the things that can't be explained. I'm not picking on anyone. This is important to read because it hammers that point home. Douglas D says, I've drank at Mother Lovin' Listerine because I read the label and it's 10% alcohol. Let me tell you, that eucalyptus is some rough stuff. You say that anywhere else on the planet, right? And people are just going to go, you did what?
Yeah.
I'm sitting here thinking, yeah, I know a guy that did the same thing with 2 bottles of Aqua Velva, right? The stuff you use after you shave. We caught him halfway through the second bottle and literally had to wrestle it out of his hand because we were in the process of trying to get dude sober. And he said, man, I got to go to the bathroom. And we were like, boy, he's been in there a long time. And we went in and there was an empty bottle in the sink and he was working on the second one. I get it.
Yep.
I get the desperation that makes somebody drink a bottle of Listerine. Believe me, I do.
My uncle actually was at the end before he passed away from his alcoholism. His esophagus exploded, for people who don't know. Rather traumatic, but anyway, he was drinking isopropyl alcohol.
Isopropyl rubbing alcohol.
I mean, that
terrifying.
Come on, guys. I mean, you put that in a cut and it burns you. You know what I mean? You throw that down your mouth and your throat. Could you imagine getting to
Welcome to the lifeboat.
Yeah. 100%. And then we understand that. Hand sanitizer, Cody says. Yeah. And we're one of the few places that's going to understand exactly why you say that.
I'm live.
So, yeah.
Sorry, just telling my child real quick that I'm live on the air. I will. How about if I give you a call after the show's over?
We're at the top anyway, man. We can go ahead.
Love you, kid.
Hey, family first, man. Always.
Well, it's always fun doing that to her anyway. To be really honest with you, because she always gets this panicked look on her face, like I'm showing the whole world her face. So it's always fun. I get a pretty good time with that. That was awesome. As much for my benefit as anybody else's.
That's awesome.
You know what, people? Don't let fear stop you. For real. I realize how terrifying the prospect, but if tonight you're under the influence of anything and you're no longer having fun under the influence, don't fear the unknown, because I promise you the unknown is better than what you're going through right now. It may not seem like that in the beginning because it's so frightening, but I'm telling you, your best days are ahead of you. The best is yet to come. We put that stuff in the rearview mirror, and from that day forward, every time you get up, you have no idea what the future brings. If you're an addict, you know exactly what the future brings. Sad but true, you know what every single day holds, and it's never going to change. People, thank you so much for tuning into the Lifeboat. We love you. We really do. We will be back tomorrow, same bat time, same bat channel, right? Doing the same thing. Between now and then, reach out and try to save somebody. I am Captain Tommy Scoville, and on the other side of the glass,
Mark Wages.
And this, people, is a cat in the basket. Good night, everybody. We love you.